Alright, here we go. Well, howdy, y'all. Wow, that looks bad. So, how y'all doing? Heard any good jokes lately? Alright, so we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Yep. Yep, Shema, y'all. Okay, we got the cats in the background. Why is my camera so off? Yep, well, I'm the kitties. Yeah, I got a serious problem real quick. Let me... It's on YouTube then. Okay, just got some visual issues. Yeah. Okay, so everybody's been talking about the new OGL 1.1, and a lot of people ask me what I feel about it, and I didn't want to review it without reading it because there's a lot of people putting out a lot of clickbait, and I'm not a fan of clickbait. In fact, I've been spending all day explaining to people how Harris County grand juries work, so people would stop screaming about that guy that shot another guy in self-defense is going to the grand jury. Well, no kidding. So I gotta watch what I say because YouTube is punishing people for language. Yep. Despite the fact that they've got YouTube for kids, so if you're watching this, hope you ain't a kid. But so how do I explain my initial feelings of the OGL now that's been come out, now that I've seen lawyers talk about it, now that I've had lawyers talk to me about it. No copyright lawyers, family law, criminal law, maritime law. They were all gamer lawyers, but none of them were copyright law. But this is copyright 101. So let me see. How do I express my opinion on it in a single phrase? Well, pardon my French, but two bases avec mon belle. So yeah, I'd like to thank Michel Danton for teaching me all my French. Yeah. Okay, so here's the issue, and let me do a quick overview so I explain to people what I know of it. They're trying to cut people out of the deal. They're trying to really restrict people. They're making the OGL really narrow focused. Now, according to the lawyer friends, well, they're all rules lawyers. They wouldn't be playing if they weren't rules lawyers. Dwayne Fouquet, yeah, there you go, cussing in French. They don't teach you a lot of cussing in Welsh. They don't teach you a lot of Welsh profanities on these courses for some reason. I just finished the course. Instead of getting a big thank you, congratulations, you just finished 69 courses of Welsh, they said, okay, pat you on the head and go do your dailies. All right, so Wizards is making the OGL a lot more restrictive. Okay, the OGL 1.1. Okay, the lawyer issues are, they don't think they can, a lot of lawyers don't think they can do that because the original OGL was 1.0, then they changed it to 1.A because somebody did something naughty. But the person that did something naughty when they made the book of erotic fantasy was able to still keep making it using the 1.0, not the 1.0A, because the 1.0A was specifically said you can't do X, which is X is make a naughty book using D&D, because they don't want to see nipples and schlongs. But they still kept doing it because you can publish, the way it's written, you could still publish under the previous one if you were doing the stuff you weren't supposed to be able to do. But you couldn't do it. This is like 20 years ago. There was no online D&D store. It's like, and 20 years ago is actually the original OGL. There's a lot of history that people have forgotten or don't remember or just don't know about. See, the original OGL was a license to make D&D books, which is what the current one is. The issue is a lot of game companies, it became a trap. A lot of game companies thought this was going to be the latest, greatest, newest system, And what it did, it turned out is like 3.0, 3.5 wasn't a very good generic system. But everybody, a lot of game companies, a lot of well-established game companies, stopped their old stuff and jumped into the D20 license and found out it didn't work for their games. But they divested everything else, and the margins on game companies is slim. So there was like rows and rows of third-party D&D books at all these game stores that nobody was buying. It was just sitting there. And you could eventually buy a bunch of it for $1. If you can find it online. Some of it was okay, most of it wasn't, but it's hard to find it online because almost all of it ended up in a landfill. So Raven, no, this is not much ado about nothing because they've got big lawyers. The one thing that Hasbro doesn't understand, I don't know, they probably understand it, they just figure we got big lawyers. You can't copyright game mechanics. You never could. The U.S. Copyright Act dates back to 1911. And games have been they've tried to copyright, patent, and trademark games all the time. You can trademark a game, but you're just trademarking the name. You can't go out and make Dungeons and Dragons with a trademark. You can use the mechanics. You can use, and you can't use the Mystara Forgotten Realms stuff because that's copyrighted. Because you can copy the fluff, you can't copyright the crunch. So back in 1860, somebody wrote the Game of Life, and then it was not like the Game of Life we know. But it was then in the 1950s somebody updated it. Somebody from Milton Bradley updated it. That's the game we know. And so there was a lawsuit went all the way to the Supreme Court about this, and that was when the Supreme Court said you cannot. Game mechanics are math formulas. That's all they are. And you cannot trademark, copyright, or patent a math formula. You can patent a new style of game, but patents wear off real quick. They're supposed to give you a bonus or some extra time to go do and make a bunch of money before everybody else jumps in. So it's really not worth patenting a game license. I mean, they tried to patent Magic the Gathering, and the patent office said, "Nah, this is not unique enough." People have been playing. They made trading card games out of baseball cards a long time ago. Nothing memorable, but Tops and Fleer and all them. They tried it back in the 50s and 60s. And there's a lot of companies that have tried to do this. The most recent one was a card game called Bang, which was cowboy, the sheriff, and the deputy fighting the outlaws and the lone gunman, and just like spaghetti western shoot 'em up. And somebody in this an Italian company, because the cards were bilingual. They had the bang in Italian, I guess, which was like El Bango, and then in English and bang. And they're a fun little game. And then somebody else goes, you know what, this game would be awesome if it was set in medieval Japan with samurais and geishas and ninjas. And they just made another game, and it was the exact same game. And just set in something else, and they tried to sue them, and they found out that they changed all the words. They didn't touch the mechanics, and it became a different game, and they were completely separate. And Dungeons and Dragons is going to be like that. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to take all the mechanics, change the words, and it's going to be another game entirely. And there's a lot of you can't copyright level class system. There's already too many games out there with a level class system. Cyberpunk 2020 has a class system. Only War has a class system. Villains and Vigilantes uses a level system. Palladium with Rifts has a level and a class system. Rogue Trader's level class. God. So you can't, because they can't trademark or copyright or patent the mechanics, there's not much they can do to stop me from making a new game, a better game, with a fantasy game with a level class system using a D20, because you can't, all a D20 is you're rolling your chance to succeed, and it's in 5% increments. Again, Palladium uses a D20. Twilight 2000, at least the later editions, uses a D20. So you can't claim that they were ripping off D&D. Uh, so that's going to be their biggest problem with trying to, enforce this with all these people going, okay, well, we're not going to use the OGL. We're just going to make, instead of Dungeons and Dragons, we're going to have catacombs and catapulses, or something similar. You know, yeah, basements and basilisks, mazes and monsters. We're gonna have Tom Hanks write it. Hey, and that's gonna be their biggest problem. Is everybody's going to just go out and make their own game, and that's going to create a separate problem because then we're going to Gamer Thunderdome. There's a lot of people out there that play, but they only play so many games. I've got a massive shelf of games, but it's just a drop in the bucket compared to how many are out there. Um, so I've got $100. I can buy one of 20 games. Which one am I going to buy? Okay, the bad ones are going to drop off. The poorly created ones are going to drop off. The ones with crappy art are going to drop off. But you're going to have one of them is going to be fighting for King of the Hill, and it's probably going to be done by a company that's well funded, probably another media company. If Mattel goes, hey, it's like maybe we can make our own, and we'll make our own Dungeons and Dragons with with shadow elves and like magical Scotsmen and hookers and blackjack and maybe cocaine. Because everybody knows what cocaine is. Seriously, try to find a language where the word for cocaine is not similar to cocaine. I tried. Swahili, it's cocaine. Kokini. In Welsh, it's kokan. Yeah. Japanese, cocaine. Cocaina. Say what you want about the Colombians, they have brand marketing down pat. So what D&D is going to do if this OGL goes through, and I don't think the OGL 1.1 is going to go through with all this negative publicity, because you've got a lot of, they hitched their wagon to the celebrity dungeon masters, the celebrity gamers, the celebrity everything, and they've messed with their bread and butter. The cat found a bag. So you got the Matt Mercers of the world. You got the I always butcher his last name, Joe Manganiello. You got Matthew Lillard, which last thing I saw him in was no, he was in a U Bowl movie, In the Name of the King at Dungeon Siege. I don't know why I saw that movie. I was testing my pain threshold. Yeah, he was good. He was a classic Shaggy. I will give him that. He was born to play Shaggy. So you got all these people, and now they got the negative publicity. And celebrities hate negative publicity, so they're going to try to distance themselves from all of this. Like, hey, it's a power grab. And the huge chunk of it is because 2020 was 2020 as a year was fantastic. We were all suffering, but we could play D&D online, and it drew in a lot of people. But that was a one-time thing. That was a freak. That was a freak year. So the game became a fad. The fad's starting to fade. All the people that got into it say, hey, I don't have anything to do. I know, I'll play with everybody else. D&D is usually played in a group of people on a table, and you're BSing half the time. You're catching up on everybody's news. You're talking about the latest jokes, the latest YouTube, the latest whatever. Then you stab some orcs for a couple hours, and then everybody, all right, same time next week. And then they go, oh, I got the kids next week, so that's going to be a problem. I got to work. I'm going to be in I'm going to be in Portland next week, so I can't do that. How about week after next? Yeah, week after next. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Ken. And if you go back and read the thing, or go back to where I spoke French, yeah, that was the quote without the niceness in it. So, and they've got a lot of stuff in here that's scary or just self-destructive. They want 25% off of the largest ones, which is the largest Kickstarters. So if I make Drag Rider and I raise $2 million, they want, what is it? They're going to want what about $500,000? So I got to turn over $500,000 before I even put the book into print. And if you know anything about Kickstarter, the best ones have all the finances planned to the penny. And that was, so you can't just say like, all right, because all right, well I'm gonna have to raise more money to pay off of Kickstarter, or off the Kickstarter to pay WotC. And the problem you're going to have with that is the more you make, the more money you owe them, which means the less money you have to make your own game. And if you're super successful, I've seen a lot of really big Kickstarters fail because they were too successful, and they realized that the cost to manufacture and the cost to get everything done gets eaten up by the cost to ship, because it, especially when you have a lot of people ordering stuff, the manufacturing cost is usually stable. It's going up in perks. Shipping costs can vary wildly. Learn that shipping to Greece, because we didn't realize it was $75 to ship one box, and we forgot about the $250 shakedown at their customs office. I'm pretty sure that wasn't actually a real tax. That was the, hey, you want this cleared through customs in less than 6 months tax? Ah, well. So, yeah, so you got this 25%, which is insane. And they say they can lower the threshold. So if a lot of people go in, and he's like, but they don't make if they don't make the 750,000, say I make 700,000. Okay, well then Hasbro goes, well now it's going to be 500,000. Dean Powell, and you try to split up your Kickstarters for chapters. They're just going to change the rules. Okay, this is not a D&D game where every rule is. This is not first edition D&D. What they're doing is not first edition D&D. This is, everything is set in stone, written down. Like tables and tables of everything. This is paranoia. If we find out how the rules work, they are obligated to change the rules. Doesn't have to be fair. Doesn't have to be. Doesn't even have to be public. They just say, oh, you owe us this much, because we say you do. Lucky us. Yeah. And another problem they're having is some of the stuff is really vaguely worded. And for a legal document, that's not good. You want to get something thrown out at the Supreme Court, pass a law that's vaguely worded. If they have any amount of leeway, that's going to be hard to prove in court. Because they have, they say, if you do something that we don't like, we can shut you down. Let me see. Yeah, I'll talk about Drag Rider later, Victor, because I've been working on it. I have such sights to show you on that one. So yeah, they have if you do something we don't like, or you do something, you act in a bad fashion, we can shut you down without asking. Let me see. John Bogg is WotC is never going to sell D&D because WotC is owned by Hasbro, and Hasbro does not sell intellectual properties. They will let it sit in a vault for 20 years, but they will not sell it off. Hasbro will license stuff out, which I'm surprised they haven't already, because if they were licensing stuff out, I would be selling body organs to get them a Stara license. Not my own body organs, mind you. I know some shops down over in Harwin in the barbed wire district here in Houston. Yeah, there's a reason why in one particular game channel, every time he says Hasbro, he has to preface it by going, till all are one. Because Hasbro buys again. Okay, OBS is being icky again. Let me see. Hasbro, what happens when someone not U.S. makes a game and breaks the law? Hasbro has lots of lawyers overseas. That's where, Japan learned that the hard way several times. I mean, hell, Nintendo once stole the art from Ravenloft. Go look at Castlevania 2, and go look at the art of the cover of Ravenloft. And I heard it from some friends in TSR that the threat of that lawsuit paid for a lot of stuff. Okay, but yeah, so they're thumbing through a book. let's pick a book out at random. Okay, the original Monster. Yeah, this was my first attempt at printing the book, just as a see how it would work, and mistakes were made. I didn't realize that the way they did the bleed. I hate bleed. I hate calculating bleed, and so yeah, the book's huge. I'm thinking about if I got to raise money for the next book to raise money for art, I may auction this one off. It's a one of a kind. There is nothing like it. But say you're looking through, somebody's looking at TSR, and they say, or not TSR, WotC. Somebody's going, oh, this is a nice book. I wonder what's going on there. Yeah. I'm looking at, I like this book a lot, and it's really, really cool. And then they get to the Toa, which, yep, she's Brock Sampson naked. And they said, you can't show boobies. You can't show, you can't show boobies in a game that involves stabbing orcs and, decapitations and robbing people and like grave robbing and necromancy. Nipples are verboten. They say hello, Mrs. Welch. Hello. Yeah, she says hello back. Yeah, Mark, I'm gonna need about $2,000. Because art ain't cheap, and good art is even less cheap. Okay, so somebody goes through there, finds the Toa picture, and says, "Oh my God, you can't show nipples in this game with necromancy and blood and decapitations and all of that stuff." He's like, "So you got to go away." And they go on Twitter or Tumblr or whatever, and they start raising holy hell, and Wizards decides that they don't need this bad publicity, so you're gone. Okay, I got 99 people that loved the book, and one person who's never read it says, "I saw something I didn't like, it's got to go," so they've got to go. Do I think this kind of prudishness is distinctly American? No, I know this kind of prudishness is distinctly American. Yes! All right, all of my European friends are like, "Oh my God, look at all the violence in your book. I can't, you can't show this." So pick one or the other. It's like, do you want decapitations or do you want areola? I'm happy with both. It's like the picture with the halfling sitting on the decapitated Baelor, and I got people complaining about the fact that I got half of the people that complain were complaining about the fact that the succubus was topless, and the other half was complaining that she had a spear through her. I was like, okay, chaotic evil sex demon. Yeah. Yeah, if Winter ED, what if you like both? Welcome to Mystara. Look. Yeah, the new OGL is not enforceable, but there is a thing. There is a thing called we have more lawyers and money than you do, so we can make it enforceable by bankrupting you, as you have to defend yourself. Yeah, I have a problem with we can tell you to knock it off, and we can cancel you without warning, without a clear list of violations. All right. Because you got to know where the line's drawn. It's like they're making the third party people angry, and the third party people are free advertising, and I don't know why they can't grasp that. All these people, they're not making adventure modules. When was the last time they made a floppy adventure module? 3rd edition. There's no Queen of the Demon Web Pits. There's no The Lost City. There's no Castle Amber. You get the monster books. You get the 250-page adventure modules, which go from level 1 to level 10. 5th edition has problems. That's the yeah. 5th edition does have mechanical problems, but we're not. No, you don't have to boycott them. Just buy somebody else's stuff. It's like, I don't boycott Wendy's because of their politics. I don't eat there because I don't like their food. If you don't like the game, play something else. There's a lot of games to play. Yeah. They're trying to turn it all electronic, and electronic doesn't work that well. It's like it's they've got some great video games. Don't get me wrong. BioWare, oh my god, I can't believe I'm saying this. BioWare made some fantastic video games for D&D. Yeah, and then what was it? Capcom. Capcom made some hellacious video games. No, it wasn't Microprose. I forgot who made Fantasy Empires, but they did some stuff. Shadowrun is not affected by this in the least bit, except for people fleeing to other game systems. Yeah, if people are fleeing to Shadowrun, they're not there for D&D. They're there for the chummers and the deckers and the riggers and all of that. And my favorite troll surgeon Jurgen. Yeah. BioWare in its heyday made masterpieces, but they got bought by EA, and EA is all about the money. That's why we get Madden 58 now, which is the exact same as Madden's 15 through 57. There's a lot of games out there, but some company's going to have to pick it up and start releasing stuff on a regular basis, because if you're not releasing stuff for your game, it's going to die. That's just any game company. I don't know why Hasbro hasn't licensed it out. They've already, because they want money. Like if they said, like $50,000. They said, okay, not $50,000. Let me find a number that I can actually acquire. Okay, on my game shelf right now, I have practically every D&D BECME product ever made. I have all the Mystara 2nd edition. I have almost a complete set of Rogue Trader. I have a large number of Fantasy Flight RPGs for World Trader. I have a complete Cyberpunk set. I have a complete set of Star Wars D6, except for Crisis on Cloud City, and I would try to find this one. On my shelf, I probably have about $10,000 to $20,000 worth of games on the secondary market. If they put the Mystara license up for sale, or even for a license, I would liquidate it all in a heartbeat, because then I can actually create. Then. No, if I could, there's a market for that. I asked Hal, the guy that runs RPGMP3.com, how many people downloaded the Mystara Player's Guide. 35,000. There was like 31,000 English and then 4,000 Italian. And that's, I could, if I could do the Mystara and make the money back, I would just buy the game back. I can buy the books back again. I can replace books, except for Faith and Coin, because then I can't ever find out when somebody's not selling it for $1,000 or something happens. Yeah, Hasbro wants the 2020 money, but the 2020 money isn't coming back, because now we can go out, we can play with our friends. They've been putting out a lot of stuff, and taking out the game books, they've been putting out a lot of knickknacks and trinkets and gadgets that aren't going to sell. Because it's already been done. They got the vinyl stickers. They did that in 1980. There's a reason why we stopped using vinyl stickers. They're putting on poker chips, and you put a vinyl sticker on it, and here's the troll. It's like, or I could spend the, but you can't restick the vinyl. Or I could just go down and get one of those guys that made like the cardboard stand-ups. They made cardboard stand-ups, but the plastic bases break. There's companies out there that have already done these things, and they've already done them better for less. It reminds me a lot of the fall of TSR, where they're starting to put out a lot of stuff that we didn't want, is low quality, and it just seems to be hitting shelves to hit shelves. And like, Yeah.
the money is not in it
Yeah.
for a million and one different products.
Yeah.
Unless small groups do it in small batches.
Yeah. They did the TSR. My wife was saying that the problem is they can't. They're making too much product for not enough people. The people, can't, like people don't want all this stuff. They have no desire. If they wanted it, they'd already have it because it's already been made since 3.0 came out. Lockable tiles that you can like build a map with that they just came out with. Games Workshop did that with Space Hulk back in 1980. And there's like, map tiles put it out, all through the 2000s. It's been done. It's been done better and it's been done cheaper. Um, yeah, the Capcom Mystara game. I don't know why they have not done anything with the Capcom Mystara game. That's considered Capcom's best beat 'em up. Every time I try to look for Mystara to see, if there's anything going on, I get about 100 people posting up their live plays. Yeah. No, it's the random cursing is me. I cannot use profanity that much, or uh, YouTube will get upset with this video. 3D printing is doing fantastic. I have a friend of mine that has a 3D printer, and he's printed up all the monsters. Though, like Reaper did, when I worked all the way there, Hasbro. Well, this was before Hasbro bought them because Hasbro wanted Pokemon and forgot there was a bunch of other stuff attached to Pokemon. Um, yeah. They would print out, they would make these miniatures, and they would send pictures of it to Wizards of the Coast, and Wizards of the Coast would give the yay or nay based on how close it was to their art. But now the new OGL says you can't make D&D related miniatures. Miniatures is not covered by the OGL. So if I make a ten-eyed, ocular, annihilator that's floating around and is a tennis ball with more tennis balls glued to the top of its head, they can take it down.
They're basically trying to control everything, and you can't, because the whole
Yeah.
point of Dungeons and Dragons is a cottage industry as well as
Yeah.
a corporate industry.
Yeah, it's D&D has become a cottage industry with the original OGL. Uh, anybody can make D&D product now. Anybody can, and everybody has. Hell, I've got stuff up on the DMs Guild, which was like cutouts of the book, trying to make a little bit of money. It makes me about $20 a month. It doesn't sell well, but it was just to have something up there. Um, yeah, the stream is crapping itself for me too. Um, let me see what's going on. Yeah, I'm having some issues. I'm having some real issues with. Was it OBS has already crashed once tonight? Um, I'm doing what I can. So let me see. I had my list of notes. Let me see. Yeah, like I said, I don't know why they haven't licensed out all the licenses, because they have problems. They listen to they're based in Seattle. They're listening to people from Seattle, and they're not going to the. I don't know why they haven't gotten the top performers from the DM's Guild and putting them in the new anthology. That was no. I am definitely in the boonies. They said that they were going to have fiber optic out here sometime this month, and now they're saying, nah, we'll get around to it when we get around to it. And goodbye. Hold on. I have 18 Sexy Girl XYZ. Let's ban that person, because that I can get in trouble for. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Okay. And let me see. That's good. Be gone, bot. Yeah. Hey, looks like I've made it. I got porn bots on there now. Uh, Thank you, Wrestling Theater. Um, Yeah, you know you're having a good stream when the porn bots show up. Um, Spam, glorious spam. But yeah, they come up with these anthologies. They again, I'm not a big fan of anthologies. I've made myself abundantly clear on anthologies. I'm reviewing Tales of the Red for Cyberpunk right now, so I've got another Cyberpunk book that I'm coming out, and it's but it's an anthology, and I'm like, okay, let's get through them again and again. Thank you, Wrestling Theater. Um, yeah. So you've got these guys that have made Wizards of the Coast lots of money. I mean, you got the platinum module designers that have sold hundreds, if not thousands, of modules for these guys, probably tens of thousands. Yeah. Um, and why not give them an anthology rather than just like, hey, we're gonna get a bunch of people who have never written a game book before, and we're gonna give it to them because they fit a particular box that we're trying to fill. It's like, okay, are they any good? Because I'd really like to, like look, like here, give okay, you can give these people a you can give the writers, okay, give me a mystery, give me something about books, give me something about a non-European culture, okay, but get people that are established inside the industry, you know, give us the cream of the crop, like you give the people that are like trying to get into it, you give them lesser assignments and you put that in like Adventurers League or like well they did it when they did it in the old days. They gave them as like, okay, I'd like to write a dungeon, an adventure for you. It's like, you ever done this before? No. You got any previous published works professionally? No. Um, have you ever, have you ever put out, have you ever done any, have you ever written professionally and worked under an editor? No. Tell you what, we would like the cut of your jib, but I don't know if you're ready for prime time, so we're going to give you a adventure to write. You're going to put it in the Dungeon magazine and see how people react to it. And if they react well to it, we'll give you a full module. Yeah. Um, Let me see.
The other problem
Yeah.
is pulling in writers that aren't D&D writers.
Yeah, they're pulling. Yeah, and they are pulling in people that aren't D&D or aren't they aren't the fantasy people. I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Mike Pondsmith worked for TSR, and granted, he wrote one of their science fiction games, and he's not he's not associated with most fantasy games, though he did come out with The Witcher lately. Uh, get people. You bring somebody in that's never done anything before, have them write something for like the minor league D&D games or the minor league adventure series. And if they do good and they prove themselves, and more importantly, they can follow instructions, then you give them one of the adventures in the anthology. Let me see. Will this current kerfluffle affect your ability to release your Mystara books? I have no idea. I have no idea. Mystara is one of the two problematic settings for Wizards of the Coast. The other one being Dark Sun, because people, they're all into the. It's like, well, you can't write about a culture unless you're part of that culture. All right, and Mystara is all about those cultures, and maybe I don't get out that often, but I don't know of a Melanesian game designer. I don't know of a Mongolian game designer. I certainly don't know of any game designer with blue skin and violet eyes. And so that is one of the reasons why Mystara is problematic. And then, you can rewrite some of it to change some of the stuff that aged badly, like the comedy orcs with the like Chief Sitting Drool with the red orcs. Okay, we can hand wave that and change it. I rewrote the Etrugan book to actually give it some fluff, give it some weight, because of I had again, I don't like sensitivity editors. or sensitivity readers. I generally consider them grifters and con artists because they're going to find something to be offended by because that's what their job is to read something and be offended by it. So it's like, well, I didn't read your book, so I'm gonna, so you need to pay me to read your book to see what's wrong with it. It's like, no, no, I don't. And so like the two people that helped me on the Etrugan book were Marco and Tom, and and both of them were just like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make like you need to make this. You need to show our people as we envision them as being heroic characters. And the more I worked on it, it's like, yeah, there. A lot of different cultures have specific images for their heroic characters, for their folk heroes. Like the English want their folk heroes tend to be a very charismatic leader with a whole host of competent underlings. King Arthur, Robin Hood, hell, even Henry V from Shakespeare. The French like the purity and the essence of spirits. The Japanese like their people to be absolute badasses. The Arabs and the Arabs prefer theirs to be guile heroes like Alibaba or Aladdin. They're not the biggest and the meanest, but they're the smartest and they're the cleverest. And that's where you're looking at it. You're taking how they see these versions of their culture, these heroes that represent their represent their standards and their ideals, and then you present it like that way. So you had Alibaba, Aladdin, Shahrazad. Those are how the Arabs and the Saudis and all of that. That's how they see the Persians. That's how they saw their heroes.
Actually, that's the Western ideal of Mama, sensitivity writer.
Yeah.
That's the Western ideal of what they think
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
it's like.
Well, that's what the guys from those cultures told me they wanted.
Yes, but they also, again, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
Western interpretation.
Yeah. Yeah, and then and of course they all wanted a bird of prey. My wife.
The point I'm trying
Yeah.
to make is you can't avoid
Yeah.
seeing them through the lens of your culture.
Yeah.
Because it's your culture.
Yeah. And we're trying to look at other cultures, and I see them through the lens of my culture. It's like when I talk to the people that I didn't know, like what's the Mythic Polynesia, where the one Maori guy got all upset because I haven't read the book, so I don't know what the complaints. It's like I've got the Irindi, and one of them is based on the Maori. It's like I speak zero Maori. I know one guy because he's married to a friend of mine. And his entire interpretation of his people were big, rowdy, and like to fight. That's his interpretation. That's what he likes. So it's like I did what I could. It's like, but then there's like people complained about the original art. She's got the facial tattoos wrong. She didn't have that. And he just told me, don't worry about it. It's like, we will appreciate that you did this. We know that you're going to take creative license. You're going to the rule of awesome exists for a reason. Yeah. Yeah. As a Dutchman, give me an admiral of a massive. Yeah. Yeah. It's like well, the problem with Birthright was it's really hard to do time skips in a RPG. It's like I like the Birthright setting, but yeah, the people that did Birthright said the time skips are a little hard to sell to new people. And their refusal to touch non-Fey rune settings. Hell, they won't touch anything but the Sword Coast over there. Where's my Dale lands? 3.0 or the third edition turned the Forgotten Realms into the juggernaut that it is because they covered everything, and the Forgotten Realms campaign guide was a masterpiece. Okay, I don't.
The problem is that another problem that Hasbro is having is they're forgetting it's a game.
Yeah, Hasbro is forgetting it's a game.
Not a lifestyle.
Yeah, they want it to be a lifestyle brand. They even claimed it was going to be a lifestyle brand. Yeah. Huh. I don't know what Mike Ponce just did with Mexican. I have to look that up because I like Pon Smith. He was cool, but that was because I got to play with him and hang out with him for a little bit. Um, yeah, Aladdin is Chinese in origin. Yeah, with in the 1001 Arabian Nights. But yeah, you people want to see their culture done in their idiom. That's the word I'm looking for. Um, and that's like you're not going to get two people to agree. You're not going to get two people from the same place to agree on how something should approach their culture, because there's different ways to see even your own people. Um, the Etrugan book. Everybody, the guy that was doing that was helping me with the Aztecs hated the Aztecs. He was he was a Native American from Mexico who was the biggest pro-colonialist I have ever met, because his tribe was the first one to switch sides over to the Spanish when they got there, and the Spanish rewarded them healthfully. Um, yeah, lifestyle brand is they're gonna lifestyle brand is like D&D the lunchbox, D&D the breakfast cereal, D&D the flamethrower, and I would be first in line for that. Yeah, Artel still sells all of their books. I don't think they've ever gotten anything out. Um, yeah, and this is a niche hobby. We sit around and imagine things in our head and give ourselves problems, and we used to be the nerds and the geeks, and then the geeks and the nerds that were the theater students became famous, and then you had famous geeks and nerds playing Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, and then they started like doing the nostalgia goggles, and we get Stranger Things with with Eleven and Steve Harrington, who is a criminally underdeveloped or a criminally underused character, and he needs his own spinoff. And of course, sexy Mrs. Byers, Joyce Byers. But but that's going away because the kids are almost 18 and they're moving on. Um, yeah. So I mean, D&D used to be the funny, occasionally you would get a nod because there would be some nerd on a television show that did it, like X-Files, when the three gunmen were like making bets, and you think they're betting on a sports game, and no, he's betting on if he can roll a natural D20. Let me see. Bobby Morris, did the D&D cartoon ever get stats? Yes, it did. Yes, they did. If you get the original box set, which came out of the cartoon, which came out in the 2000s, it came with a the third edition book for the cartoon where they gave them stats. Um, that was awesome, and it ain't cheap. Oh God, it's not cheap. I wish I would have grabbed it when I did, but nope. Um, so yeah, Hasbro is they saw a fad. The fad made them a lot of money. The fad's dying. They still want the fad's money. Um, and then so they're trying to grab onto what they can. They're thinking they're cutting open the goose that's laying the golden egg. The fan base was making them a lot of money, and yes, other people were making money off of this other than Hasbro, because a rising tide lifts all ships. Hasbro made a lot of money. People who made stuff for the Hasbro made money off of that, but you still had to get the Hasbro stuff to get the money. Um, and they want a bigger share of the pie, but the people that are like the third party guys, they're not going to stick around if you make it not profitable for them. And they're like, okay, okay, now we're going to take an additional 25%. What do you think the profit margin on a game publisher is? There's a lot of people that would be happy to get a 25% return on their books.
Well, that's the other
Yeah.
thing, honey, is they're
Yeah.
forgetting that
Yeah.
most of the people that play
Yeah, and that was yeah. My wife's saying they forget a lot of people that play these games are not rich, and that was actually a thing. I haven't played Magic in many years, but the last year for Magic the Gathering, speaking of Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast, um, was a disaster. And one of the things, so they came out and said, okay, let's figure out what the problem is. And they actually said that the problem was is their customer base was too price sensitive. Not that they were charging way too much for some of this stuff. I mean, come on, $1,000 for the 30th anniversary pack, $1,000, and you couldn't even play the cards because they were like reprints with special backs, like the International Edition and the Collector's Edition, all them years ago. It's like, no, it's our fault because we're too price sensitive. Not that we can't, not that you're charging way too much. It's because we don't like the price you're charging, and yeah, that's just that dog ain't going to hunt. And they're getting a case of the greedies, and they're going to drive away the people because the third party producers, the first time somebody comes up and is like, hey, I've got I've got catacombs and catapulses, and I've got a new OGL, and he's like, you guys are more than welcome. Or these the other online virtual tabletops that aren't D&D Beyond, turning around and it's like, hey, all you other game companies, like we'll work with us and we'll set up exclusive stuff for you guys, and then it's going to be D&D Beyond is only going to be D&D. Yeah, I'm not out of touch. It's the customer that's wrong. Um, yeah, and they were the Magic the Gathering has a lot of problems. It had a lot of problems when I got out, and apparently the problems have only amplified greatly. Anyway, I used to play the 40K collectible card game, the original one, and just to give you an example of how Magic the Gathering screwed up, you would have like these ultra rare cards. And they were always foiled, and it was not a random foil. You did not get a foil Mordian Iron Guard. You always got a foil Last Chancers because the Last Chancers were always foil, and nobody else was foil unless you were an elite. But the way the foiling process works for the cards is it bends them. It bends them at a pretty good angle after a while. So the cards with the elites would puff up more because the foil card puffed out, and it was a major problem. And with Games Workshop, despite it being a really cool game that I really liked, but sadly died, um, the they never got around the mechanical issue of that. There was a physical flaw, and Magic the Gathering jumped right in. They kept the same foiling process, so they had the exact same problem that somebody else already had and helped kill their game. Yeah, Paizo has its own issues. The game designers will jump ship to whoever's paying them well, paying them fairly, and giving them a lot of creativity, letting them play with their creativity. That's not to say that they'll be able to write willy-nilly. You'll still be able to say, okay, I'm giving you 20 pages. I need at least 10,000 words, no more than 15,000. We've already slotted space out for art and stat blocks and all of this. This is what it's about. This is what it's going to be doing. You can't include X, Y, or Z because this book is not going to include X, Y, or Z. And do that. And if you can't follow those instructions, you're in the wrong business because that editor does not want to have to try to pad your work or cut down 30 pages to make it fit. Yeah. And yeah, I've dealt with that before. The writers that can't listen to basic instruction. And that's what happened with Candlekeep Mysteries. But I've already talked about that. They were said that do not include anything for players in this one. No player races, no player classes, no nothing. Guys said, all right, here you go, new player race. It's like, nope. Yeah. The trading card, yeah. And yeah, the OGL is probably going to end up looking like the new GS if they keep it. I don't, with all the backlash, I don't think they're going to keep it. I think they're going to make concessions because they're already losing a lot of the fan base, and if they lose Matt Mercer, they lose all the critters. And like I said, I don't have any problem with Matt Mercer. Some of his fans are absolute fanatics. who will hear no wrong about the guy, even when the guy's pointing out what he did wrong on occasion. It's like, yep, screwed up that encounter, misread that rule entirely. No, you can't do that. It's like if he jumps ships, if he jumps to another game system, his fans will jump with him. Okay, there is nothing stopping him from picking up a copy of Powers and Perils and just running his game with that. It was like WotC will try to cut out, WotC will try to cut out its competition, but you don't think the other game companies or the other like the Mattels and the Parker Brothers, they're not watching what Wizards does right and what they do wrong. And it's like, okay, no, we can copy this now that we've seen what to avoid. Yeah. Wisdom is the ability to look back, remember if someone's done this before, and recall whether or not it hurt. And it's like I can watch you walk through that minefield, and when you step on that last landmine, I know where to go and and how far I can go. Yeah, from what I know about the critters, at least from what I've encountered, yeah, he can run World of Cinnabar and they will jump on him because they're doing it because it's a professionally put on voice acting group, and he can tell a story using any system. That's the whole thing. Yeah. They want a story. They want to hear a story. It's like that's what they want to hear. Like some people can listen to audiobooks. Some people prefer to read the books. Some people want to watch the television show. Okay. So yeah, the OSR is, and that's one problem is like the OG, if the OSR explodes and everybody goes out and makes their own stuff, it's going to kill a lot of people because there's not that much money going around, and you're going to need to actually turn a profit to keep doing this. Yeah, and that was, it can be done, but you've got to come up with something better than everyone else, and you've got to market it correctly. And there's going to be a lot of game designers that are going to be starting to come out with something, and they're going to get snapped up because these game companies, they want a new game, but they don't want to put the money into actually creating it and playtesting it. They'll let somebody else do it and then buy it from them. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because some of these people will give them more money than what they ever considered possible to earn. It's like, here's $10,000, please go away. Okay. No, I was only expecting to make about $5,000-6,000.
Well, there's only so much money you can make off of
Yeah.
a good idea.
Yeah, and there's the amount of money you can make on these is finite. It's like the Mystara Player's Guide paid for itself many times over. But then the money stopped coming in. The people, like even when I did the re-release and did all of that, you can't go to the well twice. Do I see any particular game companies benefiting from the 1.1 chaos? It's too soon to tell. It is way too soon to tell because TSR in second edition didn't follow the trends, didn't read the crowds, and White Wolf came along with Vampire, and all of a sudden this was the new hot hip happening game. Then hello Fred. Yeah. Yeah, corporations don't follow the zeitgeist. They're too tied to their charts and their numbers. Okay, when they went to fourth edition D&D, they were like, okay, we're gonna go into this and we're trying to capture the WoW crowd. Well, the WoW crowd didn't want to play tabletop games; they wanted to play World of Warcraft, which is odd because apparently now, from my friends that play it, they play fourth edition online as a computer game almost, and it really works. It was like almost building a board game to copy a computer game when actually turned into a computer game finds a new life. But yeah, you went from 3.5 to 4. Nobody wanted to do that. Nobody wanted to change up their game, so Paizo came along and said, hey, Pathfinder. And then Pathfinder beat D&D. Yeah. Oh, speaking of the Mystara Player's Guide, you want to go to rpgmp3.com. Just type in Mystara Player's Guide. The first Google search will take you straight to it. It is not that. Um, and just like, yeah, they don't realize, I got to wrap it up. Out of the money that they're not making from them, consider that the cost of advertising. Because these people are making your product, they're talking about your product, they're promoting your product, and all they're asking is the ability to, you know, maybe make a little bit of money, a fraction of what you make, and you know, occasionally get a shout out, or, you know, like drag us in front of the camera, and yeah, it was like, you know, it's getting harder and harder. YouTube is trying to turn into TikTok, and TikTok is kind of self-destructing. Then YouTube is giving us some really weird restrictions. Um, the you know, they're trying to they're trying to grab all the money, and they don't, and the people are just, they're looking at the bottom line, and they're not seeing that gamers will go elsewhere. We will take our money elsewhere. It's happened twice in the past. TSR got litigious and sued everybody, and people, you know, they sued Mayfair over the Rolaids. Hell, Magic the Gathering came around because of a Palladium lawsuit against Wizards of the Coast when they used some Palladium IP for a crossover conversion guide. They took that money and paid Rosewater and paid for Magic. Yeah. So what's going to happen with the 1.1? Personally, I don't know. I think it's going to get radically dropped or changed. I think that the fan backlash is going to do it. If they don't, somebody will come along, and then we will be looking at Dungeons and Dragons 7.0 in about 5 years. And Hasbro will replace the people. The people responsible for sacking the people who have been sacked, who have just been sacked. The new 7th edition will be created in an entirely new fashion at great expense. So, yeah, I've got to come up with the drag writer videos. I'm still working on. I'll give you a spoiler before I have to go. I'm not going with the OGL. I'm going with a new, better system. And the one thing that people liked about 5th edition with the Warlocks was they could craft the Warlock how they wanted from the choices made. So we came up with a tier system. Well, I did, because it's hard to find people who give me feedback. So you have multiple fighter abilities. We started with the fighter. So you can have bonus weapon proficiency, bonus fighting styles, extra hit points, your first ability, and you get the first level ability of it. And then later on, you get another tier. Well, then you pick a new tier, and you get the first level ability of that tier, but the previous one goes up. So say you get hit points. Okay, the first tier of hit points is you roll two dice to determine your hit points. You take the highest. At the second tier, your die goes up to a D12, and then you roll 3 dice and take the highest. And so the earlier you put something in the tier, the more you get out of it. So that was one thing we're working on. I got to playtest the hell out of this. But it is 8 o'clock, and it is time for to eat. I am glad everybody. Thank you for coming out. If I'll try to keep going. My life has been hectic because of the holidays, and I will try to get back on track with everything. And peace out.